Everybody has a Star Wars ranking, and I'm no exception. That being said, I wouldn't care to share mine unless I thought I had a unique perspective as to how I rank Star Wars. I guess I have trouble picking through each movie to put them in order from most to least favorite. I find that my specific ranking would change often based on how I'm feeling at the time, as I like different things about each film. The way I like to organize Star Wars is into something of a tier list that I'll show you right now. The first tier is what I like to call the game changers, because not only do they break new ground, but also have greater cultural impact outside of Star Wars and even films in general. These are in order, from my favorite to least favorite, and first up is Star Wars, the 1977 original. This was the first game changer, and it's impossible to claim this film didn't have cultural impact and change the entire film industry. Why are the credits always at the end of movies now? It's also my favorite movie of all time. Next up is The Empire Strikes Back. This sequel brought new dramatic weight to the story and definitively proved that Star Wars doesn't have to rely on the effects or the action or lightsabers to be compelling and engaging cinema. This is many people's favorite Star Wars film, and I totally get why. For me, it's number 2 only because of the fact that the original can stand on its own as a self-contained story. Not that I don't like that it was continued, but if I could only have one movie for the rest of my life, it would be Star Wars. It set the stage perfectly for Empire to be as good as it was. Simply put, Star Wars walked so Empire could run. My next and final film in this tier is The Last Jedi. I don't care what anybody else thinks, this movie gets better and better every time I watch it. The genius of this movie is that the film challenges you as a Star Wars fan, calling into question many preconceived notions you may have had about the series. That is hard for a lot of people, but if you stick with it, you're vindicated in your love of this series. This is because of the good that it inspires in people every day. The Jedi and the Resistance are not perfect, but the good they do and the good they inspire makes it worth it to stand by them and their ideals. Similarly, many people and institutions in our lives are imperfect, but still ultimately stand for good and are worth protecting. It also sparked a huge cultural impact in all of media that still affects us to this day, for better or for worse. What puts The Last Jedi behind Empire for me is that it's overly long and a little bit more complex than the former. Every time I go to rewatch The Last Jedi, there's a small part of me that thinks maybe this will be the time when I see the movie that everybody else is seeing and actually hate it. That still hasn't happened yet, but I'll keep you posted. Now, we're actually going to skip to the bottom tier, which I'm going to call the silly stuff. This is just Star Wars media that I don't really take seriously at all. It can be ironically fun, but ultimately not impactful on the series as a whole. This includes, but isn't necessarily limited to, the holiday special, the Ewok movies, and Connect Star Wars. Also, if Star Wars Detours wasn't canceled and actually got made, it would go here too. Now we come to the finish with the middle tier, which I'm calling, yeah, it's good, it's Star Wars, you know, it's cool. And this is the tier where I put everything else. All the rest of the movies, books, shows, games, and trading cards go here. You might look at this and think that I'm saying that like 98% of every Star Wars thing ever made is mid, but that's not it at all. I named these tiers very specifically on purpose. Look, the reality is Star Wars hasn't been revolutionary for almost 50 years now. I don't hope for every new piece of Star Wars media to be a game changer, but the game changers remind me of what I like about this series in the first place. The tier that everything else falls into is the lighter, more breezy stuff that I enjoy on a day-to-day basis. Within the bottom 2 tiers, there is a wide gap of quality from very good to pretty bad and stuff that I don't really care about or take seriously at all. That being said, there's too much that I like in the worst of the movies, and it would take too long for me to sort through everything else. Now, you might think that I'm making Star Wars too much of a hug box by not using clear negative rankings or tiers, but I have plenty of issues with a lot of Star Wars stuff. I want this series to be the best it can be, but there's a lot of different opinions on what that is. There's plenty of room in this series for different entries that can work for different types of fans. The way I see it, Star Wars has become so ubiquitous that everybody can pick and choose their favorites. I would ask you to drop your Star Wars ranking in the comments, but I don't really care. So just only comment if you're gonna start an argument with somebody. Sound good? Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.